I wanted so much more for myself and for my family. I want to build a legacy for them, give my family the life that they truly deserve. And so I'm like, how am I going to do that?
Thank you for joining me on this purpose driven investment podcast today with my friend Adam Colburn. Hi, Adam.
Hey, Shinyi, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you? I know you're still working on your W-2 just like me, right? You just wrapped out the work today?
I am. Yep. Just about to leave, but couldn't get to the normal studio. So this office will do just fine.
So I'm so happy that you decided to join us today because I remember last time when we chat, I'm very impressed by how you generate lead, how you were able to work with the partner, also sometimes work with the seller to make the deal work. Take us through your investment journey.
Sure, yeah. So I've been in this space for about 4 years now. I originally got into the game because I have 3 kids now. I had 2 at the time. My daughter was a couple months old, was working at this W-2 that I'm currently sitting in, and was having this kind of existential crisis on my couch, like early in the morning. The job I have is good enough, right? But I only have like 2 or 3 ladder rungs to climb, and then I'm going to be tapped out for the rest of my career, at least in this role. And so I wanted so much more for myself and for my family. I want to build a legacy for them, give my family the life that they truly deserve. And so I'm like, how am I going to do that? In a past life, I was a professional photographer specializing in real estate photography, did a lot of listings, but just on the service side, never like investing. That's where I first caught the bug of real estate investing, but my mindset just wasn't in the right place. We didn't even own our house at the time. I don't even know how to buy my own personal home, let alone go and find an investment property and do all the things, find the money, flip it, sell it, all the stuff. Didn't know about off-market real estate at all. That was kind of a back burner issue. But then when Gwen, my daughter, was born and I'm having this crisis on the couch, I'm kind of like, all right, I got to figure out some sort of side hustle so we can start increasing some revenue. Photography was an easy fallback because I'd done that for so long and I'd shot a lot of weddings and engagement, but all the high ticket items are on the weekends. Sure, I could make an extra $3,000 to $5,000 over the course of a weekend, but then I want to see my family more, not less. That small amount of money that I was going to make did not outweigh the time away from my family. I tried a whole bunch of random side hustles. I did print on demand t-shirts. I did some stock trading. We did some drop shipping, all the things, and had like limited success in all of them, but nothing to really move the needle. One of my late night deep dives into YouTube, I come across Jerry Norton and he's talking about wholesaling. And I think the title that really grabbed me, it was like, I flipped this piece of paper and made $40,000. And I was like, no way. I was like, immediately thought it was a scam, but I was like, it's a 15-minute video. What do I have to lose? Let me go and watch this. I watch it, and then he starts to talk about wholesaling and the whole process of getting a property under contract, selling that contract to another investor, and you get to make the money in the middle. And my brain was just melting. And I was like, there's no way that it could be this simple. Did some more research on Facebook groups and bigger pockets and stuff, just seeing if this is actually like a legitimate strategy. Found a guy local to me, and I reached out to him and said, hey, you don't know me, but I've been learning a lot about this wholesale thing, and I just want to know if this is actually legit. Can you show me a receipt that you actually made money doing this? Didn't know what a closing statement was or a HUD. I called it a receipt. And he messaged me back a couple days later and he's like, yeah, I actually just sold an infill lot in this neighborhood, like up the road from us in Raleigh. And I made $25,000. Here's the receipt, newbie. And I was like, wow, okay, this is real. And so I just like dove headfirst into like consuming as much content as I possibly could, listening to all the podcasts, joining all the groups, quickly into that journey, maybe 2 weeks in of just gathering all this information. I found Pace and Jamil, Brent Daniels, like the wholesale hotline crew. And then obviously was immediately attracted to Pace, just kind of the vibe that he puts off, his go-giver mentality. And then obviously the creative finance piece was super interesting for me because obviously I was broke and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to buy these houses. That's where the journey started. Primarily focused on wholesale for the first couple years. I actually met my first partner and we're still partners to this day on our wholesale operation in the free group before I joined Sub 2. So we started doing a handful of deals, got some traction. That's when we transitioned into fix and flips. We could cherry pick the best deals. Now we're doing anywhere between 3 or 4 flips at any given time here in North Carolina. Also buying rental properties specifically for sober living. And then I also own a coffee shop right outside of Raleigh as well. So over the course of 4 years, we've kind of touched a little bit of everything. No multifamily yet. We're actually underwriting a few, but our bread and butter are flips and wholesales. And then we take some of that active income and put it into our sober living properties.
I see your fix and flip and wholesale operations still based locally.
Yeah, we primarily focus in North Carolina. Carolina. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. We primarily focus in what's known as the Triangle. So Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill. That's where we do the lion's share of our business. But we've done deals from Tennessee all the way down to Florida. We've done stuff in Michigan and Texas. And so if they come across our plate and I can help dispo, I have a lot of relationships with buyers across the country and just within the community that we're both part of. But our main focus is North Carolina, just because we have so many extra exit strategies, whether we keep it ourselves or we can go and wholesale.
I see. I think it's so interesting you mentioned that. It's really resonating with all of us who are still doing W-2 job. Coming from a traditional mindset, we're almost institutionalized in a way that you follow certain procedure, SOP,
Yeah.
but one day you saw the end. You don't really like the end you're seeing. It was like, there must be something else, something
Right.
more. That's what brought you into where you are today. You start with YouTube University, be suspicious enough to go to somebody local. Hey, show me the proof, right?
Right.
Show me the proof that you actually made money and this is legitimate. That's where you are today. So I like to dive a little bit deeper. Obviously, we're in the creative financing space. Like we now utilize that as our main strategy. Let's talk a little bit deeper about the sober living outreach that we talked about before. I think that's so interesting the way you did it.
Yeah. So the homes that we own are for sober living, right? Transitional housing for people coming out of recovery centers. But one of our lead generation sources is within the senior living space. And so we'll build relationships with directors and other higher ups within assisted living communities, basically to let them know that, hey, we can be a resource for you and your clients. That if a family wants to move into the facility, but they can't until they sell mom or dad's house first, we can be an option. We're not licensed realtors. We're not going to go and just show the property and see if we can sell it. Like I'm going to give you a cash offer, or I can give you an offer, which we call equity assurance. And we'll get into that. That's kind of how the subtail model started for us, is where I can give you some money down to get you in the community. I'll fix up the home. I'll sell it, and then you'll get the lion's share of your equity on the back end. And when we structure it that way, I'm able to pay them significantly more than I could as a cash buyer. So typically like 30, 40, even up to $100,000 more if they're willing to wait. We go and just provide a resource for the community to be able to turn those leads that they have in their desk drawer into actual paying clients and tenants in their community. And then we get the property to work on and either wholesale or flip ourselves.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit deeper. I think that was super smart because such a great way to acquire off-market deal because you went straight to the source. You position yourself as a alternative solution. You're not too salesy. You basically say, hey, I could potentially solve your problem. If the mom and dad try to move into this group home, but they don't really want to spend time and effort to fix the house up and try to get it onto the market condition, you can then come in to present a very fair, equitable solution for them.
Absolutely.
And I know you mentioned about you usually give them a couple of different options so that you're trying to be fair and you also need
Yeah,
to get paid for your time. Let's talk a little
of
bit
course.
on that.
The initial conversation with the homeowners, because now we're already have inherent trust because they trust this community that we've built a relationship with. Now they're handing that referral off to me. So they already know that I'm legitimate, which is great. We'll do a normal walkthrough like we would with any seller, and we'll assess the situation, whether it be a hoarder house full of stuff, deferred maintenance, which is often the case with seniors, is they've lived there for 30, 40 years and it's time for an update and they don't either have the money or they just physically can't do it. That's why they're transitioning into some sort of senior living. And so we'll typically lay out three options, and I like to present it similar to what an agent would. Okay, Shinyi, if your house was completely fixed up, like you put all the work into it, whatever that's going to cost, I don't know what it's going to cost, but you're going to put the time and effort into it. That house on the market in beautiful condition is going to sell for 500,000. There's option one. You could just do the work yourself, find a realtor and list it. Option two is you could sell it for cash. I'll come in, I'll cover all closing costs. I will buy it as is, where is. You don't have to lift a finger. Obviously, we have to take into account the renovation and all that stuff, but this is a guaranteed offer. We can close in as little as 10 days cash, or the equity assurance is where I can pay a little bit more, maybe a lot more on the property if you're willing to let me flip the house first. And they're like, okay, what does that look like? In that example, right, you can sell for 500 in fixed up shape, but it's going to need a significant amount of work. My cash offer is 300,000. My creative offer, my equity assurance could be 400,000. Let's say 380,000. Right, $80,000 more. I can give you $40,000 up front in your pocket today. I'll take over the underlying debt if there is any. And if there's not, then I can make monthly payments to you as a seller finance note. And then we'll renovate the home. And then once we sell, you'll get the remainder of your equity at closing, paid out before I do because you're leaned against the property. And then any profit that's left over comes back to my company.
So we might have to explain a bit more because I think for us, like we're like, yeah, we speak the language. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
But for people who does not have a creative financing background, we're looking at two things. Like, how do we keep the seller secure? Because you tell them, well, you're gonna pay them $80,000, and you promise I'm gonna pay you 40 upfront and 40 on
Mhm.
the back end when you fix out the house and sell it. How did you make sure their money is secure?
Any deal that I do with a seller, their equity position is placed with a promissory note and deed of trust recorded against the property. If there is a first position mortgage, I'm buying that subject to I'm now responsible for making those payments on the seller's behalf. Second position note against the property will be for their equity. There's no way that we can go around the seller and sell without paying them their equity first. In the event that I don't make the payment on the mortgage or something happens, Pace Classic get abducted by aliens, they can go and take the property back from me without having to go through a foreclosure process. And they're going to get a property back in better condition than it was when I first got it. And they got to keep all the down payment money. So
Yeah.
worst case scenario for me is the best case scenario for the seller because they're secured against the house.
I know. And by the time you already fixed your work or maybe halfway there, it's still better than where you found it before.
Right.
And let's talk about the benefit of you doing that.
The benefit for me is that I have to bring way less capital to the table to make the same amount of profit on my flip. Because if I'm leveraging hard money or private money for the total purchase and the renovations, I'm going to be bringing a significant amount of money to the table that I'm raising. I'm typically paying anywhere from 10 to 14% interest only for my money. If I can take over a loan at sub 5%, that's amortized. My monthly payments, my carrying cost is significantly less. And that's how I can basically pass those savings off to the seller so they can make more money where I can still make the same amount of profit by raising way less money, if that makes
That
sense.
is so smart because you're basically passing down the fee you would have to pay the bank and pass that on to the sellers as a win-win solution for you because your
Yep.
carrying cost is way less and
Right.
they were able to benefit from the money that you save from going outside the box, not have to go back to ask money from the hard money lender.
The way that we structure the deals, I'm going to make the same whether they take my lower cash offer or if we do the creative deal. So either one works for me. But obviously, if they're in a position where they can wait, why would you not want to make significantly more money? Then I have to bring way less money to the table. Everybody wins. I'm not making significantly more by doing it that way, but from a cash on cash return, I am. Like if I need to bring $500,000 to the table to buy a house and it needs $100,000 worth of work, I can sell it for 750,000. There's still plenty of margin there, but my carrying costs are much higher. I'm going to have to pay some sort of down payment unless it's all private money. There's just a lot of leverage, right? A lot of risk. But if I can just bring a small down payment, let's say 20, 30,000, and then the 100,000 for the renovation, I'm still making the same profit, but I have way less exposure out in the marketplace.
You have to close it in two files.
Just one closing. We'll buy it subject to with a down payment. It's basically a sub to seller finance hybrid. So we'll buy it subject to, and then we'll just put the remainder of their equity in second lien position. So they sign all of their documentation. And as soon as we record, they're already recorded against the property, secured in that second lien position.
But that's the file that you took over the deed, just step two.
Right.
So then,
When I
but
sell,
when you sell it
when I
again, then
sell, correct. Yeah, there will be another. Yeah, I'll go and list the property. Yeah, find a new buyer. And then that's when we close. And so we'll just send the multiple payoff statements, one for the actual mortgage and then the one for the seller's equity so that they get paid out in escrow. And then whatever's left at the end of the transaction is what we get paid.
so I like to ask you another higher level question. I know you could answer it. So this is very different than the traditional novation that we used to do the way we were taught. You kind of name it as a novation without the risk, right? That's maybe briefly talk about the traditional novation, but
Sure.
your way of doing novation, why is yours way is much better?
The traditional way, and there's kind of two frames of thought for novations. In Pace's world, how he taught us is basically you're partnering with the seller. They're bringing the property as their side of the partnership. I'm going to bring the money and the resources to renovate the home and sell. And we're going to agree on some sort of split where you're going to walk away with 300,000. I'm going to walk away with however much I can push the value and obviously cover my costs. The risk in that is that the seller still has control of the property. And I've heard of too many horror stories where they get to the closing table and the sellers are walking away with $100,000 and then the investor is also walking away with $100,000, maybe even more than the sellers. And they have to sign that closing statement and they're like, what the heck is this? Like, we feel like we got scammed, and they blow the deal up. And now you have to go through legal action and all this stuff. Or it's like a flip or flop situation where the sellers end up loving the house and now they want to stay. And so now you have to refinance you out, and you're not going to get that full benefit or the full profit that you could have realized if you sold. The way that I structure the deal, because I close subject to and I have the deed, I have full control of the property. Whether I make $1 or I make $1 million, the sellers don't see that. We've already negotiated their number, so they're getting their number regardless. They're secured against the property. It prevents any pocket watching, letting
Okay.
greed take hold, because for me, that peace of mind is well worth the extra closing costs
Extra closing.
to actually own the property.
Right, because you own the deed, you have control, so there's no change of heart at the closing
Right.
table. All of a sudden, either party refuse to sign or feel like they're being taken advantage of. And then I really like your approach of being very upfront with them, so they understood the turn fully going in. Expect certain amount of return that's guaranteed and secure against their property, and then you can't really sell it without they sign off. So that's such a great way to do that. So I like your innovation without a risk strategy. So other than sober living, senior living, are you doing both right now? Which business model is the one you primarily focus on?
So senior for me, at least currently, is just an outreach method. So think of direct to agent, but rather than reaching out to realtors, I'm reaching out to community directors at these assisted living facilities. Sober living is what I actually operate as our rental portfolio. Transitional housing for people coming out of rehab centers or out of the prison system or something like that. I have two right now. I have one in Knoxville, Tennessee, and one in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Both of them I'm renting out to a nonprofit who manages the home 100%. They cover all maintenance, they cover utilities and internet, and there's no management fee because they're a nonprofit. So it's essentially a triple net lease in the single family space, which is awesome because I don't want to be involved. I just want to be the landlord and make the elevated rent compared to market. That's what we've been doing, and we're continuing to scale that space. My goal is to buy 20 this year, creatively all over the country, primarily in the Southeast, but I'll take a look at anything in any major metro area. We're also kind of shifting focus outside of the arbitrage model where I only rent to a nonprofit, where I want to bring some of those operations in-house because I can elevate my cash flow even further. We're building some systems and processes right now where I can still hire an operator, so I'm not the one running the house, but the tenant type that we're bringing into the property is going to be just a little bit higher level compared to the ones that our current nonprofit is bringing in. And so we can charge a higher rate per bed and really maximize our cash flow on that single family house.
As far as the sober living client, where did you find these clients? Do you do some sort of similar outreach to a prison system?
Yeah, similar. So the two houses that I have currently, I'm working with the Oxford House. They're a nationwide nonprofit, and they were kind of just the lowest hanging fruit for me when I was stepping into that space. The first one in Knoxville, Tennessee, that whole situation just kind of fell into my lap. We went with it. It turned out to be great. And we could see that there was a big need for sober living homes all across the country. We continue to partner with them or build relationships in other markets. The one that we just picked up in Winston-Salem was actually already operating as a sober house. The owner of the property just wanted to retire. We bought the property from him, so we didn't have to displace those tenants. Because it's such a large organization, I can just quick Google search Oxford House, enter your state, and then start to reach out and build relationships. And really, they were just cold calls, essentially, where I would just call and say, "Hey, Shinyi, my name's Adam. I'm a local investor. I love what you guys are doing. I was just curious if you're looking for housing right now. And if so, where's an area that has the biggest need? I'd love to provide opportunities for you." So I'm essentially reverse wholesaling, but rather than selling the property, I just found a high paying tenant.
Yeah, you're pitching and, hey, I have a house available. Would you
Right.
like to take it over and run in my house?
As far as the other strategy where we're bringing operations in, I'm using a very similar model as what I use in the senior living outreach, which is the most effective for us has just been cold emails. So I'll go on their websites where they have like an FAQ or contact us page, and I'll just send a very small, pretty vague email just saying, I would love to get on the phone with somebody or see how I can provide value to your organization. And then they'll call me and then we can go through a very similar pitch. Like, this is the type of homes that we provide. Do you guys need housing? And if so, how much are you guys typically paying per bed? And how soon do you need it? When I gather all that information and I know that there's enough tenants in this one geographic area that needs a house soon, now I can go and start marketing heavily in that area or leverage the sub 2 community to find a creative deal that I can buy. And I already know who I'm going to put in that house.
That is so smart. And you know what I did in my local area? I found nonprofit agencies. It's similar what you're doing. I
Mhm.
basically went it as, instead of writing email, I should have write the email. Now I learned from you, I'm gonna send emails as well because I can target more. I
Yeah.
basically went to the local one. I just kinda went and sort of like a secret shopper. I'm like, "Hey, I'm
Mhm.
trying to find house for my dad." He
Right.
showed me around and try to see, "Hey, what kind of client you usually serve?" And it's like, "Have you ever run into somebody who's trying to put the mom and dad in here, but they couldn't move forward until they have to sort out a couple of things?" I
Yeah.
thought about buying them lunch, but I don't wanna appear to be too salesy, but
The email goes to a phone call or maybe even meeting in person, and then those are only 20, 30 minutes, and then it's always the nurture process, right? It's very similar to building
you can
relationships with
see.
agents. When we first did it, when I first kind of found this strategy, we did 3 deals with one director from one 30-minute conversation, and we ended up making about $45,000 between the 3 deals. 0 marketing spend, just a 30-minute conversation in their office, just letting them know what we could do. I know I can elevate that even further if we just continue to nurture those relationships and check in periodically to say, "Hey, we're still here. We'd love to serve your clients. Hey, what can we do to provide more value?" Once you get through that barrier and now they know, like, and trust you, they start to send you a lot more referrals.
That is so important. I like how you said like and trust. It's all about if they like you and trust you, they can see in your face, they can shake your hand.
Right.
So I think you have such a fair advantage because you're local. You can go into their office, you can talk to them in person,
Yep.
they'll shake their hand. That's why you win.
A box of donuts goes a long way with these kind of relationships. So, definitely
Exactly.
gotta do that.
Wow, that's so much value. I'm so excited for you to come over here and we learned so much today, including the senior living outreach that you talk about, the sober living, how you right find the tenant, and also the big thing I like the most, the equity assurance that the way you try to do novation without
Mhm.
a risk. Thank you for sharing
Sure.
all that, not just one, two.
Absolutely. Yeah. Happy to
Um,
share.
yeah, so this is I think this is where we, can wrap it up. But I wanted to make sure that people can find you because you're being so successful working in your area in a
Sure.
triangle area in North Carolina. And I know you're still trying to expand, try to build more co-living houses in your area, right? So how
Mhm.
could people find you?
So there's a couple different places, but probably the easiest one is just on Instagram. My handle's here at the bottom, but it's at the Adam Colburn. That's also my YouTube channel, which I host a podcast as well and do some walkthrough videos and doing series as we flip houses and how we structure deals. There's some education there. Or you could go to my website. It's adamsbuybox.com. That has everything that we're looking for. You could schedule a call to join the team, become a bird dog. If you have some money that you're looking to lend and get a high rate of return, we're always looking for more lenders. You can find all that information at adamsbuybox.com.
About the bird dog, right? I think we're talking about the orbit program. You're very selectively chosen certain people trying to work with you. They can shadow you and learn from you.
Yeah.
Also do work to do deal together. What is bird dog exactly?
Yeah, so bird dogging is basically just bringing deals that are already under contract from other wholesalers that fit your criteria that maybe you haven't seen and bringing them to my attention to say, "Hey, this deal looks like it's something that you would like. If you end up doing it, would you pay me a fee for this?" And absolutely I will. Obviously, I have a pretty decent reach within the community, but I can't meet everybody. And there's so many other deals happening, thousands of deals that are happening every single day. I don't have the bandwidth or the team behind me to see every single deal that's happening. It's valuable for somebody to bring to my attention a deal that I would like to purchase. That's essentially what a bird dog does is they build relationships with other wholesalers that are actively putting properties under contract. And then if they fit my criteria, my buy box, they send those over to me. If they make sense, we'll end up buying those houses and then we'll still pay them a fee for bringing the deal to the table.
I see. Just like more set of eyes out there scouting deal for you, bring the deal that
Right.
makes sense for you. So
Mhm.
definitely look up to adamsbuybox.com. Awesome. We're gonna definitely include all that in the description so people can reach out to you. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. We learned so much from you. And this is my podcast, Co-Purpose Driven Investment Podcast. I specifically asked for you to come because I think you fit our agenda so much to creating a return that matters. So thank you again for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.